Hi, my name is Liam, aka Liam the Plumber. Today I'm going to be installing a full bathroom using Fischer's products. We're now going to install the basin and pedestal to this wall here. But before we install these, we need to make up the basin with the tap and the waste. So the first thing we're going to do is make up the tap ready to go inside this basin. So with the tap, we've got our flexies, our horseshoe clamp, our back nut, our sealing O-ring, which goes on the base of the tap, and our stud for the tap, for the horseshoe clamp and the back nut to pull down and clamp this tap to the back of the basin. So first thing we'll install is the stud right here. Again, this only needs to go in hand tight. The flexies are color coded. In this case, we've got a red one to denote hot side. So we'll install the cold side first. And again, these just go in hand tight. No need for tools to tighten these up. Then the sealing O-ring goes like that, pops down and then sits in the recess at the base of the tap. This stops any water from penetrating through the tap hole here and down below. So we feed this through the tap hole just like so. And we pull this so it sits nice and flush just on the basin like that. So from the reverse side now, you now need to fit the horseshoe clamp and your back nut. For me, just match up the size of this back nut with the relevant socket. So in this case, 11mm socket fits the back nut. Again, in your situation, this might be different. We now need to fit the horseshoe clamp. So this hole in the center of the horseshoe clamp slots over the stud around the flexies, just like that. In this position, just hold the tap roughly in position. Get the back nut onto the stud and do this up just hand tight. Now, from the front, ensure the tap is sitting square and flush over the tap hole, so it's perfectly sealed to the basin. And then finish off tightening this up. For me, I use this socket, goes onto the back nut. Pick out the kit I need to tighten this tap to this basin. So start off just doing this somewhat tight. And then just keep checking the tap is square to the waist and perfectly aligned. Again, this is the perfect opportunity to make sure the tap is perfectly sealed around the tap hole. Finish off by tightening this up. Don't need to go crazy, just enough so the tap doesn't swing around. And that is the basin tap installed. Now we'll move on to the waste. So now we're going to make in the waste to the basin. Now with this waste right here, I'm going to use Fischer Multi MS to seal this waste to the bottom of the basin, securing a watertight seal. So into our applicator gun, separate that apart first, pop through the main part of our waste with the washer on there like so. You'll notice how there's a slot, that's our overflow slot. So as we pass this through here, our overflow is this hole right here. We need to ensure that slot is directly in line with that one right there. Flip the basin up and just pass through at the moment, and that will be absolutely fine as it is. Now, apply some of this around our waste right here. Washer on. Don't worry about the excess. It can all be wiped off afterwards. Top of that washer. Because you never know if there are any imperfections in the base of this porcelain, and that's what that Multi-MS can help us get over. So, keep that push through. Wind that on, start it off hand tight. Make sure you don't cross thread it. And again, keep ensuring our overflow on our waste is in line with the overflow on the basin. And then a slight nip up is all it needs. Right, so now we're ready to install the basin and pedestal to this wall. So where the customer wants it is directly in the center of this grout line here. So first off, we need to find the center of our basin. So center of basin here is half of 51.5. So I'll mark that just here. So now we've got our center mark on the basin, ready to put these two together. Just move this roughly in line with that. Be careful doing this. Basin on top, just like that. And then I'm going to move this against this wall, making sure that center mark is in line with our grout line right there. So for this, I shuffle it across the floor. So now it's in our rough position, and now it's going to level the basin off, and I can mark the holes under the basin ready for our fixings. Level around the back, and then we'll just check it's level. A slight adjustment. Right, so now the basin is level. I'm going to mark underneath again with our pencil, ready for our WST clicks. So now our holes are marked on the wall. We now need to drill through the tiles and into the wall behind. So the WST click comes with all the fixings you need, including the plugs. Now these are a 14mm plug. So I would always advise going through tiles with at least 3 or 4 different drill sizes before you get to the 14mm. This would save splitting and chipping the tile. So I'll go through the 6mm bit first, then a 10, then a 12, then the 14. Right, so now our holes are drilled. We're now ready to fit our 14mm plugs and our 2 bolts right here to secure that basin to this wall. So insert the plugs like so. Give them a slight tap. Then I like to do a little bit of a trick with this. So these studs, you can wind in on the flats about there. You can wind those in with the spanner. What I do is put them into the chuck of a drill, in like so, and then release the chuck. And that's the bolt installed. And now do the same with this one. So now our bolts and our plugs are installed in the wall. We're now ready to install our WST click to the basin. So the way these work, so male to female. These, I like to do in this way. So this part here goes in through that hole right there. A little bit of movement on there. So if you need to adjust them when they're on the wall, you can. This then winds in. The WST clicks sit quite loose when they're in, but they're literally just pushed together. Before you go sliding this on to the bolts, ensure that these little wings are in the open position and not the closed position. Otherwise, these will not click into place. Line the pedestal up so it's roughly in the middle, but far enough away so you can slide it all together. Then the basin goes on top. Then what we're going to do is just wiggle the basin into place. The basin is now on the wall, just on the WST click. So if there's no pedestal here, I could quite happily and confidently leave this basin just hanging on its own. The WST click saves me having to hold the basin on my shoulder to support it and slide it on. The WST click takes care of that. Imagine my fingers are the basin, and this is the bolt or the stud you would have seen me insert into the wall. As you slide the basin on, it will lock into place and it will not fall off. Once it's locked in, allow enough thread for the nut and the washer, and simply click the wings into position, and that basin will not come off the wall. That right there is enough to keep that secure. So that's the basin now against the wall. We're now ready to fit our washers with our nuts and then tighten these up to get the basin secure. While we do that, we'll double check it's level, of course. We've now put our nuts and washers on. We're now ready to tighten them up so the basin is then fully secure to the wall. Again, checking that it's level. So I always use a 17mm ratchet spanner underneath to tighten these up. So to finish off this basin, I'm just going to silicone around the edge using Fischer's DMS multi-silicone. Silicone around the basin using this silicone from Fischer. Apply it within the first 10 to 15 minutes, otherwise, like any other silicone, it will start to crease. I'd always recommend leaving it 24 hours before you go touching it, cleaning it, or using it. But now the basin is all done, ready to use. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Liam the Plumber. This has been How To using Fischer Fixings.